All right, let's talk one of the most talented positional units in America, secondary at USC. This is going to be good. We bring in Nick Dempsey from Conquest Chronicles. Nick, this thing is star-studded, top to bottom players all over the place, and that's with losing one of the great players in school history at his position in Sua Cravens, who was all over the map, 15 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks, led the team in tackles. But what's coming back ain't too shabby. We'll start at cornerback.
Yeah, so at cornerback, on paper, I think they could have the best tandem at cornerback in the country. You got, of course, Adoree Jackson, who everyone pretty much knows about at this point. If you don't, you will very soon. And then on the other side of him is a very, very highly touted, very talented kid who was a freshman last year, Iman Marshall, probably better known as Biggie Marshall. He's a big dude. He's freakishly sized and talented. But last year, particularly at the beginning of the season, Marshall had a bit of a problem getting up to speed to the college game. He had some fundamental problems. He got penalized quite a bit for kind of failing to get his head turned around, so he'd get flagged for interference because of that. And I think he also had problems sort of learning the schemes and the routes where he needed to be. You saw this most prominently in the Oregon game, where everybody just seemed out of position. The good news for Marshall is that he's still the same size and speed, but towards the tail end of the season last year, particularly against UCLA, he really seemed to get his stuff together. He played lights out against UCLA, and he wasn't sort of the easier target that quarterbacks looked at towards the end of the year. So if he continues to progress this offseason, and by all accounts he has, Marshall could be, and he's still only going to be a sophomore, so Marshall for this year and next could be one of the best players out there on DB. And then on the other side of him is, of course, Adoree Jackson, who really was just amazing on the field. He did amazing things. But those two right there, there's a ton of stars next to those guys' names when they're coming out of high school. They played well at times. If they can come out and play consistently elite defense at cornerback, that unit or that position could be phenomenal for USC, and it might turn out to be very difficult to pass on the Trojans next year, and that's going to be exciting to see.
Yeah, Iman Marshall was the consensus #1 cornerback coming out of high school. Turned in this fine freshman season, had some issues, as you mentioned, just terms of polishing his skills and getting the most out of his ability. And you mentioned the UCLA game. He was the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Week against the Bruins. Adoree Jackson, the only question about him is, are you going to see a special season? We're going to see a great season out of him. He's a lockdown guy. But if he makes 2 or 3 or 4 of those kind of plays on defense and the opportunities he gets on offense, then suddenly maybe he's got a Heisman campaign in the works if he's able to get a couple pick sixes in crucial situations, or in the return game, of course, and when he's used at wide receiver. All right, the safeties, very good as well. Chris Hawkins, very good player at free safety, and you got Marvell at strong safety as well.
Yeah, so Chris Hawkins was pretty solid. Lot of potential for him coming back this season. He's exciting to see. He missed all of spring with surgery, so he was out. And his backup, Leon McCoy, also missed practice, I believe, spring practice because of, I think he had class or scheduling conflict or something. But anyway, all through 2016 spring at free safety, they've been going with their #3 and their #4 guy. And in the spring game, you really saw that. The free safety in the spring game, the third stringer just didn't seem to know where he was at or where he was supposed to be. Plus, Adoree Jackson missed the spring game because he's doing track. So in the spring game, in total, the USC defensive backs looked bad. But you're going to have Hawkins coming back. You're going to have Adoree coming back. It's going to be more than just Marshall trying to hold things together back there. But Chris Hawkins is going to do a lot at free safety. It's going to be really exciting. Him getting on the same page with Adoree and Biggie I think is going to be critical. So they don't have guys out of position. You aren't banking on Hawkins to maybe overcompensate when Marshall can't quite get the job done or isn't getting his head turned around. That's going to be huge when you have these three talented guys at free safety, corner, who can just stay in their lanes and do their jobs well. That's when things are going to really take off for them. Now, at strong safety, like you said, Marvell Tell, and this Clancy Pendergrass defensive scheme, he kind of plays quite a bit up in the box. So you might see him as an extra blitzer. You might see him as like an extra linebacker. It would have been a tailor-made position for Suba Cravens had he come back, but he didn't. So Marvell Tell is going to fill that role, but not necessarily need to fulfill all that lost production. You're going to have Cam Smith and other guys for that, which is great. So if they can get Hawkins, Adoree, and Biggie on the same page, and you get Marvell Tell understanding his sort of dual role, this is a secondary that I think could really do wonders and really supplement these exciting USC linebackers. So this unit as a whole could win the award, I think, for most improved from last season if they get everything together and if they do what they need to do in the offseason. I think this could be an exciting time for those DBs.
Tell another highly recruited player coming out of high school, Encino, California, 6th rated safety coming out of high school, 36 stops last year, 4 passes defensed. Hawkins all over the place, 3rd on the team in tackles with 70. He's got 18 starts under his belt, had 2 interceptions, broke the ankle, and he should be fine, had surgery. He should be ready to go in August for his redshirt junior season. You know, we talked about it before we came on, Nick. The talent keeps coming in, so we may not see these guys in prominent roles this year, but for 2017 and beyond, Jackie Jones, the 10th rated cornerback coming out of high school, according to ESPN, and a couple safeties, and Jamel Cook, the number 3 safety in America out of Miami, and CJ Pollard, the 16th rated safety out of Gardena, California. So the recruiting in good shape. The players continue to come in waves with a lot of stars next to the names.
Absolutely, yeah. And they're going to need them too, because the Hawkins and Adoree are probably gone after this year. So keep those names in the back of your head, because you might be seeing them in 17.
So, Nick, we pretty much covered the entire team. We still have a little bit of work to do on the offensive line, but defensive line is a mess right now. But besides that, we're talking about star players all over the place. This team lost 6 games, right? Did I see those 6 losses? They did lose 6 games last year, right?
Yep. Yep. This seems to be the sort of the normal pattern with USC post Pete Carroll. They keep bringing in talent after talent after talent. Keep bringing in 5+ losses every year. It doesn't. Everyone says, you know, recruiting is so important. You have to pay attention to it because there is a direct correlation between how well you do in recruiting and how successful you are. That doesn't seem to be the case for USC in a bad way, and also Stanford in a good way. But USC generally is the most talented team in the Pac-12, talented recruiting class. Usually, in most of their games, they're the most talented team on the field, but they can't win it. So, you know, that looks to be a problem with coaching or something, but loads of talent not matching up with the wins. And so I think how good of a coaching staff you have this year, how good of a job they do, I think that's going to be determine whether this is another 8-5 or whether this is another, you know, or if maybe they make a run, go 10-2, something like that. But that's what they can do with that talent. That's what you need to watch for this year.
And as we discussed a few months ago during one of our Pac-12 breakdown shows, unfortunately for Clay Helton, he's facing one of the more difficult 5-game stretches imaginable, covering 2 seasons. UCLA, Stanford, Wisconsin, Alabama, Stanford. So it's very difficult, but we'll see if they can split the first 2.
And most of those away from LA too. Yeah. They've got a rough September. There's no question about it. You know, welcome to college football, Clay.
Yeah, some call it the most difficult schedule in college football for 2016, but they got the talent to match. So we shall see for USC. All right, Nick Dempsey from Conquest Chronicles helping us break down the Trojans secondary. Thanks, Nick.
Of course, Mark, anytime.